Hello, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you may be in the world. My name is Tanya Powell, and today we're going to do a little bit of some data forensics. We're gonna deep dive as best as possible into how some deep pocketed, well funded people in the world have used their money, their tools to amplify a domestic situation into global politics and for strengthening, I guess, or heightening their agenda. So let's take a look. I'm gonna step back before we look into the numbers and the data that I've provided for you. I whipped up this application earlier. Take a look at. I'll provide you because 2 days ago, in fact, today's June 6th. So 2 days ago, my friend sent me a BBC article. Let me find that BBC. You can understand. But she sent me this article. There we go. Sent me this article. Thank you. Sent me this article asking. This article's about BBC article. Keir Starmer accusing Elon Musk of trying to rip up division over the Henry Nowak case. And she asked me, why do we not ignore Elon Musk? As a whoever, I don't know who we are in this case, but she said, why don't we just ignore Elon Musk? To which I replied, how can we ignore Elon Musk? He's not that he's just an individual to ignore. He owns a social media platform. He's very deep pocketed. He's on track to be a trillionaire. For those who may not know, SpaceX planning to go public. I think within the next week, if I remember correctly. And if everything goes according to plan or according to analysts anyway, he's on track to be a billionaire who also owns a social media platform and also is publicly known to get his engineers to change the public facing algorithms to suit his needs. Or I think at one point to even suit his, was it Grok? He got them to change Grok to suit his humor or his personality. I can't remember exactly what it is, but it's publicly known that he does get algorithmic changes to his social media platform and potentially to his AI as well. Double check that. I'm going off track. So today we're going to look into how both Nigel Farage, who is an MP in England, he's the MP for Clacton, and also the leader of the Reform Party, how Nigel Farage and Elon Musk they've both used the tragedy of Henry Nowak's murder and the sentencing of his murderer this week to amplify outrage algorithmically. We're gonna look at some data, and this thought process, this deep dive, this rabbit hole I've now got, this 48-hour rabbit hole I've now gone down. It started with my friend asked me, why don't we just ignore Elon Musk? Because we can't. Let's take a look, shall we? Let's go and take a look at the numbers. So, what do we know about the case? Let me give you some background. Henry Nowak was an 18-year-old student who died in December 2025. At the time of his murder, the murderer said to the police that he was racially abused by Henry, and the police they handled the situation quite poorly. They didn't do a great job, and well, the murderer was still charged, and his trial was the last 2 weeks of May. and he was sentenced on June June 1st or June 2nd. So earlier this week, he was sentenced to, I think, a minimum of 21 years. After his sentencing, Henry's family explicitly expressed that they do not want this tragedy to be used as a reason for racial division. I mean, they prefer that it be used for racial unity and for us to all learn from this. That's not gone to plan. Well, that was not the plan for certain actors, certain people, and it's now caused racial division. So on Tuesday, the 2nd of June, body cam footage was released where we could all see how the police made mistakes. If you want, you can go and watch that. I will not be sharing it with you, but we can see how the police didn't handle the situation well at all. But this was the right wing. They've used this to amplify their agenda. That is for sure. But here's the kicker, because some people may think that the media were too late in reporting on the details of the trial. That's not the case. In the UK, domestic newsrooms, they were not allowed to report on the details of the trial until the trial concluded. Because if they were reporting, they may have been influencing the jury, so they were not allowed to. That is by law. That was a law that was introduced in 1981 and continues to this day. But some people, Elon Musk, Nigel Farage, use that blackout for their own good, for their own agenda, for their own use, we say. Let's take a look at the time. Up on your screen. So, the trial was May 14th to 28th. It was a media blackout. So, under the Contempt of Court Act 1981, UK newsrooms cannot report on it. They couldn't report on the handcuffing, the pleading, or the footage. From May 24th to May 28th, on Twitter, I'm going to call it Twitter. I'll put the correct name in HTML. It's the machine started working. So there was George Floyd comparisons, details that were coming out from the courtroom. People were talking about it on Twitter. And someone who was talking about it was Elon Musk. Elon Musk, who has got 240 million followers on that platform. He's the owner of that platform. He wrote about it, comparing the case to what happened with George Floyd. You can see how the seeds are already being planted here. And just between May 24th and May 28th, what he was tweeting out or retweeting or amplifying, that got 7.1 million, which doesn't sound like a lot for him probably in your head. It's still a lot. Even if the majority of that was bots, it was still getting attention. It was still, that narrative, that story was being constructed before the trial even ended. So, on June 1st, or actually it was June 2nd, but the beginning started on June 1st, Nigel Farage enters the room and he starts tweeting. And he starts tweeting his framing, narrative of it all. This is still before the press can start publicly talking about details of the trial. He starts tweeting, about it and saying that it's because Henry was white, this is why it's happened. And on the morning of June 2nd at 7 a.m., tweets that he's gonna address the nation. The MP for Clacton, the leader of the Reform Party, was going to address the nation at 8 a.m. Okay, so at that time, his framing tweets, when I took my snapshot this morning to create this HTML, they had 2.7 million views. So on June 2nd, that's when the embargo was lifted, the press could start talking about details from the trial, and the body cam footage was also released to the public, and the verdict was reported. On that day, that's when the press started talking about it, and centre-left publications started. They started their coverage. On June 2nd, I have to say, I forgot to include it in here because it wasn't part of the data set that I have. And I'll tell you a bit more about my data set later. But on June 2nd, there was also protests and a riot. Yeah, it was a riot in Southampton, the place where Henry was murdered. There were riots later that evening. Things turned violent. Last I checked, there was been 6 arrests. And I realised here's my timeline. And I believe 6 arrests have been made for what happened with the conflict in the public and the police on Tuesday evening, Tuesday the 2nd of June. And then this is when the amplification starts from here. So on June 3rd, we had a ramp up of articles because of both the verdict and because of the previous evening's incident in Southampton. And then we have many more actors, including the US State Department tweeting about two-tier policing and a civilization decline. And then yesterday, the US Vice President typing up, and he wrote about it. And today, or late last night, down the street responded. So what started off as a local tragedy has turned into a diplomatic, or is seeming that it wants to turn into a diplomatic situation. Now, I like to listen to talk radio in the morning. So when my alarm goes off, LBC comes on through my speakers, and usually I'm awake hours before my alarm anyway. But yesterday morning, and this is why my rabbit hole started and my deep dive started. Yesterday morning, I missed all the context. All I heard was something algorithm, and I was like, huh? Henry Nowak hatred algorithm, and I was like, sorry, what's happening here? What have I missed? I'm very confused. So that's why I started looking at the data. I remembered what my friend had messaged me the day before. Why don't we just ignore Elon Musk? And for now I'm hearing it on LBC. And I listened to LBC for hours yesterday morning. I was trying to catch up and understand everyone's thought process, their thinking, and even their emotions of the situation. Like, let me keep listening, because I remembered that for the past few months I've been working on a project, and I have a little data collection pipeline because I want to understand more media narratives or what I'm high octane operations, and I'm trying to I want to understand via data, not just my gut instinct, media narratives and how they are affecting all of us. And that's both traditional mainstream media and social media. But at the moment, the pipeline I have got running is only capturing from what we know as reputable news sources from across the globe, not just in England, but from the global south as well, Western media, those are places. So for the past few months, for one or two particular high octane topics, I've been gathering news articles from various different sources and have been tidying up for data and seeing and understanding more like the political leanings stuff, like what they state their political leaning is and how they actually are. I want to understand a little bit more, but I wasn't actively capturing the Henry Nowak case. But yesterday morning, after listening to LBC for a little while, I was like, oh yeah, I actually forgot I had this pipeline. Like, let me check my data pipeline. Let's see what I've been capturing. Maybe I have some Henry Nowak articles in there, but maybe it just organically happened. And lo and behold, yes, I had some Henry Nowak articles in my database. So then I started looking. And I was like, you know what? Everyone at LBC keeps bringing up Elon Musk. My friend asked me yesterday, why don't we just ignore? Let me go straight to that source. Let me log into Twitter and see what he's actually been posting or reposting, etc. What he's been talking about. And one thing I learned yesterday, chronically, Elon Musk is chronically online. Please, he is always there. That's fine. He's got money. The rest of us have to go and work. But just from me scrolling a little bit, I did see some of the tweets that he had been reposting and the number of views they were getting. Because don't forget, SpaceX is going public, so he's been posting about that as well. But you can see the stark contrast in numbers of what his SpaceX posts were getting versus his Henry Nowak racial division amplification tweets were getting as well, or the reposts or his actual post. So then I started typing in his content, his Twitter feed into my data pipeline because I wanted to understand a little bit more. So let's start looking at the numbers. From what I actually, let me give you a bit more. I grabbed a few weeks worth. I think it was like the last 4 weeks worth of his tweets, and yeah, it was about the last 4 weeks of his tweets. I wanted to see what was happening, and while I was there, I also grabbed Nigel Farage's as well. I put them both into my data pipeline. I wanted to see what was actually going on. I didn't want to hear from the news sources just yet. I wanted to see what they were actually saying, getting primary sources, I guess, in this sense. So let's go into my database, and I can a little something. Switch tabs. So I created an event cluster. I didn't change my. I just created. So I pumped in Nigel Farage and Elon Musk Twitter into my data pipeline, and I wanted to see how many views their tweets in relation to this Henry Nowak case were getting, and the number, it was a little high, so I had to create a new event cluster called Henry Nowak 20. Give it a little run. So my snapshot earlier, when I was creating the HTML, it had less tweets, so they've increased their tweets. And the number of views that just the tweets that they've been amplifying, or their direct tweets, their reposts, has come up to an accumulative figure of 109 million. A lot of eyeballs. Even if the majority are bots, it doesn't matter. It's still a lot of eyeballs. And we're starting to understand how we can't ignore Elon Musk or Nigel Farage, because just that figure alone is staggering. We can't ignore them. Because even if we are not directly, oh, here you go. Keep forgetting to transition. Hey, FM visionary, what am I doing? Today I am deep diving into some data. I'm looking into how Nigel Farage and Elon Musk have amplified outrage with his Henry Nowak case. I looked into their tweets, some other data that I had been collecting on a separate project that organically flagged up some of his Henry Nowak stuff in my database. I'm just gonna go through that. So here's query number 1 for my database. Now it has got Nigel Farage and Elon Musk tweets piped into it. So when I go through my event cluster of Henry Nowak 2026, the posts that Elon Musk and Nigel Farage have either tweeted themselves or they have reposted come up to a total of 109 million. We're starting to see why we cannot ignore them. Because even if we try to actively ignore them, the world is not ignoring them. Even if the majority of his number are bots, it doesn't matter. Eyeballs are still on for content. And this is a large number. And do you think a large? So, if we look at the originators of this narrative, this two-tier policing, because current two-tier policing narrative, I should say, we have got, let's run. The Nigel Farage, let's look at his tweets. So, we can ignore this May 15th one. This is this on row 2. That's something completely different. I know it for sure because I deleted it earlier and it's come back in because my pipeline continues to run. I need to do a bit more data cleaning. But if we have a look, remember, the media were not allowed to talk about this trial into June 2nd under the guise of the law. Domestically, the news organisations were not allowed to talk about this case. But on the evening of June 1st, Nigel Farage tweets, which currently I've just hit run. So what I have in my database, and I think it captured this last round of capturing 10 minutes ago, we got almost 600,000, a reach of 600, almost 600,000, saying our institutions don't care about Henry Nowak. So before the media could start releasing details of this case, he's already starting the narrative on the evening of June 1st. This is an interesting one because the morning at 7 a.m. on the morning of June 2nd, he tweets out, "I'm addressing the nation of a shocking case. The MP of Clacton is addressing the nation." And he did address the nation. Less than an hour later, on the morning of June 2nd, 2026. This is the tweet, which is a video. It's got a video as well. That's picked a lot of things up off. It's got almost a 3 million reach. The fear of being called racist was greater than dealing. I've truncated it. We can get the drift. So Nigel Farage, he's the originator of a particular framing. And him alone, just his direct tweet, they got a lot of views. So even if we look at this mistakenly placed tweet from May 14th, it's got 1.2 million. Don't forget, this is 1 week after the local elections where Reform did very well. They did very, very well. So he was still on the hype of that. And that got 1.2 million. His others get less than a million. This particular one where he's addressing the nation got 2.7 million eyeballs on it. Whether it's human or robotic, got 2.7. That's a lot. Now, let's take a look at this. I know it's actually something I'm. No, that's not it. Everything. So he has set his frame, he's set his narrative. Let's check the amplifiers of this narrative, shall we? Remember, I've only got 2 social media nodes. That's Elon Musk and Nigel Farage. Fair, but only 2 social media nodes I need. A little run. And here we go. We can see the amplifiers. Look at these numbers. Look at these numbers. Elon Musk retweeted someone, ViceGrad24. No idea who this person is, but come back to this person towards the end of the stream. When he retweeted their post, it currently has almost 12.5 million eyeballs on it. Whether it's repeated eyeballs, but 12.5 million reach. That's a hell of a lot. Nigel Farage, he reposted JD Vance, the US Vice President. That post has got now almost 9 million. This is a lot. Imagine these tweets, by the way, are only for the past few days. All of them are over 1 million. So we're starting to see why we can't ignore this. Why we can't ignore this, man. Don't forget the original question from my friend, my lovely, lovely friend Gillian, was, why don't we ignore Elon Musk? And I said to her, what? Well, I'll tell you, it's not why don't we, it's why can't we? Because look at these numbers. And the ball started spinning before the trial had even concluded. I want to bring back the timeline up again, just to remind you. There we go. Just to remind you. The narrative started spinning between May 24th and 28th on Twitter. And at the time I took my snapshot, the narrative that was being spun between May 24th and 28th had 7.1 million views on it. That was before the media, the domestic media, were legally allowed to talk about it. Alright, let me go back to my numbers, to my database. Alright. So, my notes again. So we can see that they are actively amplifying not just their own stuff, but other people's posts as well. They're amplifying what Henry Nowak's family explicitly asked them not to do, not to cause racial divides, and they said, hold my beer, and did the exact opposite. So, let's take a look at some more numbers, shall we? Because I can't remember what this. I wrote it hours ago. This is yeah. I was saying before. So from what I've gathered, just by getting Nigel Farage and Elon Musk tweets for the past few weeks, there are 3 originators of this framing of two-tier, this current framing of two-tier policing. And those 3 originators have made 9 posts in total, coming up to almost 44 million views. But the 2 amplifiers of Elon Musk and Nigel Farage, those 2 alone, have either tweeted or reposted up to 40 posts, either 2 of them. It's come to a total of almost 66 million views. That's a lot of numbers. A lot of numbers. So, let's go on to query number 5. What else have I got for you? This is a big query. Oh, I really can't remember what it is. So, just to remind you, I've got already in the background, I have got a data pipeline. I've been getting news articles from reputable news sources from across the world, not just in the UK. I've been getting stuff from Nigeria, India, various different countries, not just in the UK. I'm trying to understand our own personal how different countries, regions, political leanings, parts of the world, how they frame one topic. And with luck, I guess, my data pipeline had just so happened to be capturing coverage of a Henry Nowak case. It wasn't a topic that I had pumped into it. It just happened to be. So it was luck, I guess. Let's run this query. Because now we're going to move on to the press and the news. Once the embargo was lifted on June 2nd, what happened? So on June 2nd, there were 6 articles that in my pipeline that were written. One article was from a right-leaning organization, 5 from a left-leaning organization. And then, don't forget, the evening of the 2nd, was also when there were protests and riots in Southampton. That was sparked by what Nigel Farage said in his video when he was addressing the nation on Twitter earlier that morning. So, in my data collection, I had 6 articles. 1 was leaning right, 5 was leaning left. I've just realised if you're looking at my hands, I've got the opposite way because I don't know my left and right in my hands. Left leaning, right leaning. On the 3rd, we started getting more articles. Understandable, because this is the day after the body cam footage was released. We could start talking about details of the trial. We had 8 in total. Now, in my data pipeline, in my collection, I'm not saying that it went there, but in mine, none of the right-leaning organisations that I've been collecting from posted about it. None whatsoever. But in the background, on June 3rd, Elon Musk was heavily retweeting. We have 6 on the 3rd from left-leaning organisations. On the 4th of June, this is peak day. We've got 17 in total. 8 of them was right leaning, because they went truly into the manufacturing of outrage mode. And they were using the fact that they had been so much amplification on Twitter, gave them extra amplification and ammunition to do it on their platforms as well. On the 5th, which was yesterday, it died down a little bit. And today, well, it's died down a lot. We've only got 3 articles in my pipeline. There could be more. Let's take a look at some articles, shall we? So in total, we have got 22 articles from organizations that consider themselves centre left, which part of my project, by the way, is to actually determine. So I haven't said that these organizations are centre left or right or whatever. They've actually said this publicly somewhere that I've found, so I've labelled it as that. But at some point in my project, I'm gonna do some analysis on all of these articles to see if they actually lean the way that they claim to. But completely separate conversation. We've got 22 articles from centre left, 14 from the right, 6 from centre, 2 from centre right, and 2 for independent / libertarian. Take a look at this right wing here, because in my sources I have more than one right winged, but not centre right, just right wing news source. We've got 14 articles from one outlet. And you're probably wondering, why does it matter if we've got 14 articles from one outlet? I'll tell you why it matters. Because in search, whether it's traditional search of SEO or AI assisted search, doesn't matter. In search, full stop, news organizations have high topical authority. So if you have one organization who is pumping out article after article about this and may potentially have an agenda, that agenda could do search results or whatever it is, whatever tool you use to find out information. So if you're querying, I don't know, ChatGPT or Claude or Perplexity, because this one right-winged outlet is pumping out so many articles and will have high topical authority, they may get into what search results. So this is why you may want to care about this one outlet. It's pumping out so many articles. So let's run this quick. There you go. I'm meant to show you this. Because I said before, in my data collection pipeline, I'm not just getting British media. I'm getting global media from various different regions, countries, and political leanings. I don't live in these countries. I don't actually know their political leanings. I don't know if they're left or right or centre or up or down. I don't know. But I'm trying to understand. So here we go. On June 2nd, you got New York Times talking about it. By the June 3rd, New York Times talking about the protests. And then you have Indian publications, Qatari publications, Irish publications, French publications, Qatari again, and quite a lot in India actually. Oh, all 3 today are from India. There you go. But look what's happening. It's now becoming global. Their narrative that was originally run up on Twitter by Nigel Farage and Elon Musk has become global. Got my numbers mixed up. This should have been earlier. So here. What is this query? So this is when reason why it's later down here, the right hand side, and not query 5A wasn't asked straight after query 5. It's because when I went to look a bit further into the tweets, I wanted to understand what happened before June 1st, before Nigel Farage's first tweet on June 1st. What happened before? Elon Musk on May 24th was spinning his narrative on Twitter. The press could not talk about it. But on May 24th, he was the one who tweeted about Keir Starmer taking the knee for George Floyd. This here on row 3. You may not speak Polish. Nowak is a Polish name. It's understandable that someone, an accountant in Poland, may take interest in the trial because Nowak is a Polish name, and I'm not sure about Henry's actual heritage, whether one of his parents or grandparents or him himself, he may have been born in Poland. I'm not sure, but it's understandable that a Polish account would take interest. But look at this, from May 24th, 25th, and then 28th, which was the last day of the trial, he starts ramping up. And these are tweets written by Elon Musk. Ran that one. Okay, let's go check out this right here. So I was taking a look. Here are some of the headlines that were in my database. Just organically found their way there because of the other projects that I'm working on. And these are in date order. I hope. Are they? No, they're not. We'll see. Oh, can't make it big. Oh, okay, it's fine. I'm gonna scroll. So from May 3rd, actually, can you put on? Okay, let's go from May 2nd. There we go. So May 2nd, in my data collection, in my pipeline, you can see that Channel 4 started posting about it or writing articles about it. And even if we have a look here, at 8:26, Channel 4 posted anti-white racism is structurally embedded in police. The claim from Reform. That's what Reform UK. And Nigel Farage is the leader of Reform UK. Right? So this is the narrative that's being spun. They very quickly went from talking about the actual details of the trial to what Henry Nowak, to what Nigel Farage's narrative, Nigel Farage and Elon Musk's narrative is. And then you have other publications. Let me just look at the headlines. So we've gone from on June 2nd talking about the case to it straight away being politicized. And look at the language that's being used. The neo-Nazi and far-right coalition converged on Southampton. Look at the language. Nigel Farage condemned for exploiting murder of Henry Nowak. So if we look through the headlines, we're quickly moving away from the actual case itself. And the tragedy of the case and the lessons that we should be learning is being completely politicized for certain people's gains. And if you don't believe me, just look at the data. It's been going on and on and on. And I only went up to June 5th of my query. Let's bring it today. 6. Has it continued today? 5th. Yes, it has. Yes, it has. It's continued today as well. Those are all the queries I had to show you. It is the sad case. It's not unique in the sense that we've seen multiple times how this trajectory happens. But I do get asked by friends and family, why can't we just, or why is this all over my feed? Why is topic X all over my timeline? And I hope this helps you understand a little bit more. Not that the tragedy shouldn't be discussed, but it's the narrative that's being spun. And if you are unsure or you're confused, like why is my feed always got X, or why is my feed always got Y? I hope this helps you understand, because you don't have to be on Twitter, you don't have to be on that platform to be fed it, because it's being fed onto so many mainstream media platforms and publications that by them discussing it on their own platforms, it then trickles down into other social media platforms and into search results. Well, so I hope that helps you understand a little bit more, and maybe one day I will share with you a little bit more on the project I'm actually working on. Who knows? Who knows? But that is all I have for you today. There will be more on this. It is ongoing. This is just a snapshot of what I've captured since Tuesday. In Tuesday and today, there must most definitely be a lot more happening, a lot more going on. If you're interested, keep your eye out. Hopefully now you have a little bit more understanding how this amplification machine works. They've been planting seeds, and they know when to make them explode, and they absolutely have been making this particular one explode. Hopefully they will start respecting the wishes of Henry's family and dial this down. I truly hope so. I truly hope so, because Henry didn't deserve this. This shouldn't be his legacy, and this is not his family's. So hopefully they will dial this down. That's my hope, but doubt that is going to happen. And I'm gonna leave that with you all. Enjoy the rest of your evening. I will probably write up more about this on my website, so definitely check that out. You may see different numbers than what's on this static HTML. I'll try and pipe in some live data as we go along, but I do have some tidying up as I'm constantly retrieving data. But yeah, that's it for me today. I'll catch you all later.